Hi everyone, this is a quick tutorial on how to write a business letter. So I'm going to go through and cover some quick basics, just some quick tips to get started. So when writing a business letter, it's important that you think about keeping your language pretty formal. So when you're writing a letter to a friend, you can be very casual, but business letters tend to be more formal in nature. So you want to avoid contractions. So you don't want to write isn't, doesn't, shouldn't. You want to write out the full words because it sounds more formal. Did not, should not, cannot. You want to make sure your tone is always polite and respectful throughout. Even if, for example, you're writing, like I've written a business letter when I've bought something, like I had a really great bag or a briefcase and it fell apart really quickly after buying it. So I wrote the company a letter explaining that I was really disappointed that I had bought this briefcase and it had fallen apart. But even in that, I was hoping to get a new briefcase or at least a credit. And so I wanted to be polite and respectful so they didn't just disregard what I was writing because it was too emotionally charged. You also don't want to use slang or any conversational type of phrases that are, again, informal. You want to keep that tone really formal throughout. So it's important that you know who is your audience, who are you writing, what is the purpose of your letter? That way you can use the appropriate tone. So if you're writing, a business letter because you're applying for either it's a cover letter for a college or maybe you're applying for a scholarship or you're trying to get a job, you want to make sure you sound confident, that you sound professional, you use strong vocabulary so you sound intelligent. You just want to make sure that you use the appropriate tone for the purpose and the audience. So before you ever start writing a business letter, figure out who's going to read this letter and what kind of emotion, what kind of attitude should you be showing towards that reader and the subject you're writing about, and that will tell you what your tone is. And just think about tone as in like your tone of voice. So a person's tone of voice really communicates a lot about how they're feeling. And the same thing in your writing. You definitely have a clear tone. Sometimes that tone is angry and aggressive, and sometimes it's really respectful and polite. So you want to make sure that you're aware of your tone. And the Purdue OWL site, which is just a fantastic resource for anybody doing any kind of writing, says that the best approach to a business letter is to, quote, strive for an overall tone that is confident, courteous, and sincere. So I want to walk you through an example, and then if you need more detail or you want another example because mine isn't clicking for you, then I would go to Writing a Basic Business Letter at the OWL Purdue site, and this is the URL where you can get there. So if you need to pause this recording to write down the URL or grab it some way, please do that because I'm going to shift over to my Word document. So the first one I want to walk you through is really just a basic formatting document. So you can kind of see along with the explanation what you're supposed to do. So let me make this a little bit bigger. Oh, looks like that's going to have to work. Okay, so at the very top of your business letter, which should start on the first line. So you have 1-inch margins, which should be what your margins are set at on a Word document. But at the first line, you're going to write your address. So this is your street address. Then you have your city, state, and zip code. I would follow that with your phone number or a phone number where you don't mind being reached on whatever topic you're writing about. So if I'm writing about something for work, I'd probably put my work phone number. If I was writing something that was that I wanted a response and I wanted them to call me at my personal number, I'd probably put my cell phone or my home phone. And then now it's becoming more and more customary for people to also include their email address as a way to get a response from a business letter. So you'll notice this is all single spaced. The formatting for a business letter, the most common, is called block formatting. That means you have everything left-hand justified, so everything starts here on the left-hand side, and it's single spaced, but you do have a space between each paragraph. So you double space between the paragraphs, so then you have this kind of empty space between them. So after you have your contact information, your address, phone number, and email, you skip a line so there's a visible space, and you write the date. Now, you don't want to use slashes or shorten it to just numbers like 1-1-2 2011. Instead, you want to write out the month. Again, this just looks more formal. Once you have the date, again, you're going to skip 2 lines, so you're going to have that visible line. And then if you know the person's name that you're writing to, you want to start with that. Now, a lot of times when we write a business letter, we don't know exactly who's going to read our business letter, so you may have to skip this. So you only include the person's name if that's available. If you know the person's name and you know what their title is, also include their title. After their title, you're going to put the company name or the organization name that you're writing to. And then again, you include their address, and then their street address, and then the city, state, zip code. We're going to skip 2 more lines. So again, you have that visible space between the person's name and title and the company name and their address and your salutation. So you're going to start with one of 2 things. If you're not sure who's going to actually read your letter, you're just writing to a company or an organization or a college or some business where you're hoping to get a job, you start with "to whom it may concern." It's important that you capitalize each of these words, "to whom it may concern." And then you finish with the colon. So you'll see that these 2 dots, one on top of the other, that's the colon. That is what you use when you're writing a business letter. Never, never use a comma. Now, if you know the person's name that you're writing to, you're going to say "dear." Dear Mr. and Mrs., and then more formally use their last name. And again, follow that with the colon. But you only do that if you know exactly who's reading or who's going to open your letter. In your first body paragraph in your business letter, what you're doing is pretty simple. You want to introduce yourself and you want to state the reason why you're writing. Again, this is block formatting, so it should be left-hand justified. There's no indentation. You're single spacing. You're leaving a space between each body paragraph, a visible space, but the letter itself is single spaced. So in this first paragraph, you introduce yourself briefly and state briefly why you're writing. Then in your second, possibly second, third, fourth paragraph, you develop the reason you're writing. So you provide more information, more details about your request. So sometimes this is just 1 paragraph, and sometimes this can become 2 or 3 paragraphs depending on how much you have to say. Your third paragraph, so if you only have 1 paragraph here, your next paragraph would state where you can be reached if you're hoping for a response. So if you know that you want these people to respond to you, or you think they might have more questions, you're going to let them know that they can reach you at the email address above, or they can contact you by phone at the phone number above. That way they know exactly how to get in touch with you. And then the last paragraph is usually just a line where you're thanking the reader for his or her time. You might thank them for their consideration of some request that you've made. So if I'm writing a letter about this briefcase that broke and fell apart and I'm really disappointed because I just bought it and it was expensive, then maybe I'm requesting that they send me another one, a replacement, or that they give me a credit. And so in the end, I would say I appreciate your time reading this letter and considering my request to replace this briefcase. Then you're going to skip another visible line and you're going to write "sincerely." Sincerely is the best ending to your business letter. Just make sure you spell it correctly. I have a lot of students that sound it out sincerely and they put 2 S's instead of SINCERELY. And then you follow that with the comma. And then you have to skip 4 lines. And you might be wondering, why skip all the space? That's where your handwritten signature is going to go. So you skip 4 lines and then you type your name. And in the space you've created after you print out your business letter, that's where you're going to sign your name, because that's very formal. It puts the personal touch on your business letter. So I want to read you an example of a business letter that I wrote. It's actually for a student recommendation. So I write a lot of student recommendations for kids who are applying to scholarships in college. And so I've removed the student's last name, so for her privacy, but I have just included the letter as I wrote it. So the student asked me to write a letter of recommendation because she was applying to UCLA. UCLA is my alma mater, and so I said I would love to. So I'm going to walk you through what I did here. So I have actually my work address. So I put the address of the school, and because this is work related, and then I put my phone number at the school, and my email address at the school. Then I skipped that visible line and I put the date, which was September 13th, comma, 2012. Then I skipped a line and I put the UCLA undergraduate admissions basically address, all the information that I had. I didn't know who was going to read it in the admissions department because there's lots and lots of people who work in the admissions department, but I did put the department of it. And then I also included the street address, the city, state, zip code. Then I skipped another visible line and I wrote, to whom it may concern, all capitalized with the colon. I skipped another line, and this is my brief introduction, my first paragraph. I said, my name is Catlin Tucker. I'm an English language arts teacher at Windsor High School. I am writing this letter of recommendation on behalf of Sarah. And so here I've introduced who I am and why I'm writing. Again, it's very brief. Then I skip a line and I can go on to say, I've had the pleasure of teaching Sarah in my honors level English class. Sarah's maturity, intellect, diligence, creativity, and work ethic make her a joy to have in the classroom. She is continually working to improve her skills and develop as a writer. She has demonstrated significant growth and development in the time we've worked together because she is receptive to feedback and asks quality questions. So here I'm elaborating on why I would write Sarah a recommendation, right? Because I'm going through and talking about some of her really great qualities that I think make her a wonderful candidate for UCLA. Now, I'm going to expand on that second paragraph, and it actually is 3 paragraphs that explain why I think she's such an incredible student. So I'm going to continue with that. Sarah prioritizes her schoolwork and demonstrates a commitment to her education. This commitment and dedication is reflected in the quality of her work and her interactions with her peers. Her contributions both in class and in our online discussion forum have continually impressed me. Sarah is the rare student who is able to communicate, collaborate, and problem solve effectively with her peers. In the classroom, she is kind, communicative, and focused. She is respectful and supportive of her peers. She's the type of student that could be put into any group with anyone and successfully accomplish a task. She is patient, open-minded, and an attentive listener. It has been an absolute pleasure to have her in class. She would be a wonderful addition to any college campus. So again, I have my brief first paragraph, and then the second paragraph, which expands on my reason for writing, I've actually kind of made into 3 separate paragraphs here. And then I have my next paragraph, which tells the admissions office where they can get in touch with me. So I say, if you have any additional questions, you can reach me at the email address above. Thank you for your time. So that's that last paragraph thanking them for their time, sincerely with the comma, and then I have this big space where I'm gonna put my signature once I've printed out the piece of paper, and I followed it with my name typed, and then if you have a title, so you could say WHS student or Windsor student, or if you have another title, so I put English teacher, Windsor High School. Okay, so that's an example of what a business letter might look like that's been a little bit more developed.